The morning on Outpost 9 began like any other. Under two pale suns that painted the desert sky silver and gold, cargo drones buzzed overhead, carrying packages and parts to the small human colony. Engineer Eli Ward sat outside his rusty metal house, fixing an old solar generator with a tired look in his eyes. His crippled son Noah sat beside him on a small stool, his thin legs supported by mechanical braces that hissed with each movement. It was quiet until the ground trembled slightly. A cargo ship was landing nearby, bigger than any that usually came this far from the core worlds. "Dad," Noah whispered, pointing. "That's a royal ship." "Look at the mark." Eli frowned, wiping oil from his hands. The symbol on the ship's hull was alien. A curved blue crown surrounded by stars, definitely not human, he muttered. "That's not meant for us." The ship lowered a large silver pod onto the dirt road in front of their gate. Steam hissed from its sides, and a voice from the drone said in a broken accent, "Delivery confirmed, a recipient, human colony. Sector 9A, marriage cargo." Then, without waiting, the ship blasted off. Leaving behind a cloud of dust, Noah tilted his head. "Marriage cargo? Did someone order a bride?" Eli laughed softly. "Not unless you did, kid," but his voice carried unease. The pod hummed with strange blue lights. Eli took a cautious step forward. His tool wrench still in hand, the pod beeped, scanning him from head to toe, and then it unlocked. The seal broke with a hiss, and the metal shell opened like flower petals. Inside stood a woman, no, not human, tall, with silver blue skin that shimmered under the suns. Her eyes glowed faint gold, and her long hair floated slightly. As if underwater, she blinked, taking in the surroundings. And then her voice cut through the silence. "Where am I?" Eli froze. Noah's eyes went wide. "You're on Outpost 9, Eli said carefully. "Small human settlement, edge of the Perseid belt." Her pupils narrowed like a cat's. "Human settlement?" Her tone turned cold. "This cannot be. I was sent to the royal house of Zirin to wed the Lord Commander." Eli scratched his head. "Then there's been a mistake." The alien woman looked around. Disgusted, her gaze stopped at Noah's braces. Then at the dusty yard. "You live in this?" she said, voice sharp with disbelief. "Do your kind not know honor or hygiene?" Noah frowned but said nothing. Suddenly her wristband blinked red and she staggered, clutching her chest. Eli caught her before she fell. Her body was ice cold, trembling. He shouted, "Noah, blanket now!" Noah rushed inside, dragging out an old brown blanket. They carried her to the bed, her breathing weak. When she finally opened her eyes again, hours had passed. She found herself lying in a strange, messy human home, wires, tools, and old photos everywhere. Eli was sitting beside her, adjusting a power cell. "Welcome back," he said softly. "You almost burned out your stasis regulator." She blinked at him, confused. "You helped me? Would you rather I hadn't?" He replied, smiling faintly. For a moment she stared at him, as if trying to understand this strange creature. "My name is Lysera," she said, voice proud even in weakness. "Bride of the Azure Crown," Eli nodded. "Eli Ward," then pointed to the boy who waved shyly. "And that's my son Noah." Noah smiled. "Hi. You came from the stars?" Lysera looked at him coldly. "I was meant to marry a king, not speak to crippled children." The room fell silent. Noah's smile faded, but Eli's expression stayed calm. He simply said, "You're not in your palace anymore, princess," then stood and walked away. Hours passed, the suns began to set, painting the desert red. Lysera sat by the window, staring out. The human home was quiet except for the soft hum of old machines. For the first time she felt something new, not anger, but confusion. Why had this human helped her? Why did the small boy smile despite his weakness? Her world was built on power, but here, kindness ruled. Then outside she saw movement. A drone hovering near the hill, scanning with a red beam. Her heart stopped. That was a royal search drone from her people. If they found her here, they would erase everyone who saw her, including the human man and his son. Lysera stood trembling, staring at Eli and Noah asleep by the fire. A strange thought entered her mind. She didn't want them to die for her. She whispered to herself, "The stars made a mistake sending me here." But deep down, she felt something tell her maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. And outside, under the twin moons, the royal drone quietly marked the location of the house and flew away to report. The wrong delivery had just started a war no one was ready for. Lysera woke to the sound of soft humming. The boy Noah was sitting near the broken generator, tightening a wire with both hands shaking slightly from the effort. His leg braces clicked with every movement, yet his face carried quiet focus. The smell of cooked grains filled the air. Eli was preparing breakfast, his voice was calm. You should eat something, alien or not. Your body needs it. Lysira sat up slowly, her silvery hair falling around her shoulders. I do not eat human food, she said coldly. Eli didn't look up. Then starve, princess. I'm not running a royal kitchen. For a moment, silence hung in the dusty air. Then Noah walked up and placed a small bowl near her. You can just try, he said with a kind smile. It's sweet, like sun honey. Lysira looked at the boy's trembling hand and the old scars on his arms. The human child looked fragile, like glass. Yet there was light in his eyes. Bright and steady, against her pride, she took a spoonful. The taste was strange, simple, but it warmed her. For the first time since leaving her planet, she didn't feel the cold of isolation. Still, she set the bowl aside. I don't need your kindness, she muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. Outside, the suns rose higher. Eli returned to his workbench. Welding a part for a broken rover, sparks flew. Lysira watched, fascinated by the way he worked. Silent, precise, patient humans built with their hands, not machines. She couldn't understand it. Her people made servants do everything. Yet this man, with his tired eyes, worked for hours without complaint. When Noah limped to his father and asked, Can I help? Eli just smiled and nodded. Lysira turned away, whispering to herself, Why let the weak work? It is dishonor. But that night, she couldn't sleep. The hum of old circuits, the slow breathing of the boy and the smell of oil all blended into something strangely peaceful. In her world, silence was cold and empty. But here it felt alive. Later, she found an old hollow photo near the table. It showed Eli's wife, human, smiling with soft eyes, holding baby Noah in her arms. The edges of the photo were burned slightly. Lysira felt something sharp in her chest. She didn't understand it the next morning. She asked quietly, Where is she? The woman in the picture. Eli paused, then said softly, Gone long time ago. Lysira didn't know what to say. Her people didn't grieve. They erased. But Eli? He carried his pain like a medal. When a drone buzzed overhead, Lysira's body stiffened. Her eyes glowed faintly blue. That's not one of yours, she said sharply. Eli grabbed Noah's shoulder, pulling him close. What do you mean? Lysira's voice dropped low. It's royal tech. My people are searching, Eli frowned. So they'll come here? Lysira nodded slowly. They'll come for me. She stood, her silver hair shining under the dim light. You must let me go, she said, if they find me here. They'll kill you. Noah shook his head quickly. No. You're sick, you can't even stand right. Lysira looked at him with cold eyes. I do not need help from a broken child. The words hurt more than she expected. Noah turned away silently. His small hands clenched. Eli's face hardened. He's stronger than anyone you've ever met, he said quietly. Maybe you should start seeing what strength really means. Lysira felt heat in her chest. A strange anger mixed with guilt that night. She watched Noah work with his father despite her harsh words. She saw the boy stumble and get up again, never complaining, never asking for help. And for the first time in her life, the alien princess wondered what true courage looked like. Before dawn, she went outside alone, standing under the pale suns. The wind carried dust across the barren plain. In the distance, she saw the faint lights of scanning drones. Searching, her people were close, she whispered to herself. Maybe I am not ready to go back. Inside the house, Noah was awake too. Watching her through the window, he didn't speak. But when she turned and saw him, he smiled again. That small, stubborn smile, the same one that refused to break. Lysira looked away quickly, but her heart beat faster. She didn't know why. And far above, in orbit, a signal pulsed across the stars. Target found. Prepare extraction. The next dawn would bring something none of them were ready for. Morning came with the sound of old machines creaking to life. Eli was already outside repairing the water pump. Noah sat on a crate nearby, adjusting the loose straps on his metal braces. The air smelled of rust and burnt sand. But it was home to them. Lysira stood by the doorway, her arms crossed, silently watching. Her alien armor was dull now, cracked in several places, and her glowing wristband had stopped responding completely, she felt. Powerless for a royal bride of the azure crown, It was a humiliation beyond words, yet when she looked at the human man and his crippled son working side by side, she felt something strange inside, calm, almost peace. She shook her head quickly, trying to erase the thought. I must repair my communicator, she muttered to herself. Then I will leave this dust world behind. Eli's voice broke through her thoughts. If you need parts, check the scrap pile behind the shed. She frowned. You trust me near your machines? He smiled faintly without looking up. If you planned to kill me, you'd have done it already. Lysera didn't reply, but something in his calm tone made her chest tighten. Humans were strange, they feared everything. Yet this one feared nothing. Hours later, Lysera walked through the small house. It was filled with relics of human life. Old photos, music chips, tiny carved toys Noah had made. She stopped near one of them, a small wooden ship with uneven wings. Did you make this? She asked. Noah nodded proudly. Yeah, I call it the Sky Sparrow. It'll fly one day. She laughed softly. It's made of wood and wire. It will never fly, he grinned. Dad says nothing flies until someone makes it. Those words struck her harder than she expected. She had been raised in a world where everything was already perfect, where no one made anything. They only commanded. And yet here was a boy who built dreams out of scrap. Later that night, she watched Eli quietly at the table, repairing a small transmitter. He talked softly to a picture on the wall. A human woman smiling. I miss you, Mara, he said. Noah's stronger every day. You'd be proud. Lysera didn't move or speak. But the sight burned into her mind. Humans carried pain like a badge. They didn't erase it. They lived with it. Her people would have deleted that memory to avoid sorrow. Yet Eli chose to keep it. That confused her more than anything. The next day, the sky darkened suddenly. Storm clouds rolled over the desert. The colony lights flickered, and the power generator coughed and died. Eli ran out to check it, shouting, Yorlo, Noah, stay inside. But Noah didn't listen. He grabbed his tools and limped after his father. Lysera stayed by the window, uneasy. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the generator sparked violently. Then she heard it, a scream. Noah! Eli shouted as the boy slipped on wet sand and fell near the generator. His metal braces sparked where the current touched them. Without thinking, Lysera ran out. The rain hit her face like needles. She saw the boy lying still. Something inside her broke open. Instinct took over. Blue energy pulsed through her hands, crackling like living fire. She pressed her palms over Noah's chest, and light surged around them. The air smelled of ozone and ash. The storm went silent for one breath, and then Noah gasped. Opening his eyes, Eli ran forward, pulling him close, shouting, Noah! You're okay! You're okay. Lysera stepped back, trembling. Her hands smoked with residual energy. Her vision blurred from exhaustion. When Eli turned to her, his eyes were full of shock. You saved him. She looked down, whispering, I didn't mean to, it just happened. He smiled. Doesn't matter why. It matters that you did. Lysera stared at them both, confused. Humans should have feared her power. It was the weapon of her royal bloodline. But instead, they looked at her with warmth, gratitude. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a weapon. That night, as Noah slept soundly, Eli quietly fixed the broken roof panels. Lysera sat outside watching the twin moons rise. Her energy was nearly gone, but her thoughts were alive. She realized something. She didn't want her people to find her anymore, because if they did, this small strange piece would vanish. But high above, in the dark void of space, a faint blue signal blinked in the Royal Command ship's display. Target confirmed. Planetary coordinate locked. Lysera didn't know it yet, but her act of mercy had just revealed their location, and far away a warlord was smiling, whispering, My bride has learned to care for her pets. How amusing. The storm outside faded, but a far greater one was now on its way. The next morning the sky was unnaturally quiet. Even the winds that usually swept the desert seemed to be holding their breath. Eli noticed it first while fixing the outer solar lines. Feels like the world's waiting for something, he murmured. Wiping his brow, Lysera stood near the fence, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon. Her instinct screamed that danger was close. The storm had ended, but something worse was coming. She could feel the faint pulse of a royal tracking signal inside her broken wristband. It was weak but alive. She turned to Eli. We must leave this place. He looked at her, surprised. Leave? Where? Anywhere they cannot track me, she said sharply. My people, they know where I am. Eli frowned. You mean the same people who sent a warship to drop you off in a box? Lysra hesitated. It was a royal transport not meant for humans. They will come for me, and anyone who shelters me will die. Eli sighed, glancing toward the small house where Noah was tinkering with a damaged drone. Then we'll be ready. The confidence in his tone made her blink. You can't fight the royal hunters. They are trained, powerful. He cut her off. Lady, I've fixed power reactors and walked through shipwreck fire. I don't scare easy. That night, Eli began working in his shed. Sparks flying. Noah helped by carrying tools. Lysra watched as they welded metal plates together, confused. What are you building? She asked. Eli smiled slightly. Something that bites back. Days passed. The calm before the storm stretched thinner. Lysra tried to meditate, but her body trembled each time her mind reached for her lost connection. Her people were out there, proud, merciless in closing in. She looked at Noah one evening, his face lit by the glow of a small holographic globe he'd built from scrap. Why aren't you afraid? She asked him quietly. He shrugged. Dad says fear wastes energy, and I don't have much of that anyway. Lysra smiled faintly despite herself. You humans are strange. Maybe, he said. But we don't run from family. The word family hit her harder than any weapon could. For her race, family was just a title, political. Cold, but here it meant something real, something alive. Then one afternoon the signal came. Lysra froze mid-step. Her eyes widened. They're here, she whispered above the colony. A black shadow moved across the twin suns. An alien ship, silent and smooth. Eli rushed out of the shed, his face grim. Noah, inside. The boy obeyed, but only after grabbing the old blaster Eli had modified. Lysra's pulse quickened. You must not fight them, she said. They will kill you both. Eli looked at her, his voice steady. Then we make them earn it, she wanted to shout at him, to beg him to hide, but her words caught in her throat. This human, this stubborn, ordinary man, he wasn't afraid to face death for her. It made something in her heart ache in ways she didn't understand. The alien ship landed beyond the ridge, kicking up waves of dust from its belly. Soldiers stepped out, tall, armored, and gleaming blue. Bearing the crest of the azure crown, Lysra whispered. They brought the royal guard. Their commander's voice echoed through the valley. By order of Lord Zyron, surrender the runaway bride, or this colony will burn. Eli didn't move. He stepped forward, standing in front of his home. You've got the wrong address, he said. The soldiers raised their plasma rifles. Then you'll die with her. Before they could fire, a sharp hum filled the air. The sand around Eli's home shimmered. Lysra had activated a barrier glowing faintly blue. The royal guard's first shots hit the shield and scattered into light. Noah shouted from inside, It's holding! Lysra winced, the effort draining her fast. Not for long, she whispered. Eli ran back, helping her stand. How long do we have? Minutes, she breathed, her energy fading. The shield flickered. The next blast shook the ground, knocking tools from shelves. Noah fell but crawled toward the console. Dad, the power cells. I know, Eli shouted, running to the main line outside. The alien commander raised his blade. Break their shell, he roared. Lysra fell to her knees, clutching her chest. I can't hold it. Eli knelt beside her, gripping her shoulder. Then don't. Save your strength. She looked up at him, voice trembling. You don't understand. If they take me, they'll kill you. He met her glowing eyes and said simply, Then I guess we're dying together. The barrier shattered. Blue shards of light scattered across the sand. The aliens advanced, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. Lysra rose slowly, her eyes blazing gold. Her voice trembled with fury. If it's war you want, she said softly, then come take me. And from her body, light exploded, brilliant, wild, alive. The sky turned white for a heartbeat, and the hunters were thrown back. When the light faded, Eli stood shielding Noah, and Lysra collapsed beside them, unconscious. Smoke curled from her fingertips. The sand melted into glass above them. The royal ship sent a single, cold transmission, subject located. Deploy the warlord. The real battle had only just begun. The suns rose over a sky bruised with smoke. The colony lay quiet except for the faint hum of the royal warship hovering just beyond the hills. It was massive, casting a dark shadow that crawled over the sand like a living thing. Eli stood at the window, his jaw tight. His hands were covered in grease and dust, the marks of a man preparing for a fight he knew he couldn't win. Inside the house, Noah reloaded an old human blaster. Its barrel shaking slightly in his small hands, Lysera lay on the couch, her skin pale, her energy drained from the last battle. When she opened her eyes, she saw the two humans moving, silent, determined, preparing. "You're wasting time," she whispered weakly. "You can't fight a royal warship." Eli didn't even glance at her. "Maybe not. But I can make them bleed before they burn us." Lysera tried to stand, but pain rushed through her body. The energy she'd used had scorched her veins. Her own power was now killing her slowly. "You don't understand. Eli," she said, her voice shaking. "They will not stop. They'll burn this whole colony to get me." Eli turned toward her, his expression calm but cold. "Then they'll have to walk through me first." Outside, the sky split open as smaller ships descended. Royal hunters in armor as bright as silver knives. They landed in perfect formation, weapons raised, their leader. Commander Serac stepped forward, his voice amplified through a speaker. "By order of the Azure Crown, surrender the runaway bride and the human criminals who harbor her." Eli stepped out wearing his welding jacket, the old plasma cutter slung across his back like a weapon. "You want her?" he shouted. "Then come and get her." The first volley came like thunder. Blue plasma bolts ripped across the sand, hitting the walls and tearing through metal. Eli dove behind the barricade he'd built from scrap metal and fuel drums. Noah covered his ears, firing blindly into the smoke. Inside the house, Lysera forced herself up, every muscle screaming in pain. She looked at the boy's frightened face, the man's defiant stance, and something broke inside her. She stumbled outside, her steps unsteady. "Stop," she cried. "They want me. Leave them alone." The alien soldiers hesitated, recognizing their lost princess. But Commander Serac's cold voice answered, "You belong to Lord Zyron, and your protectors will die as traitors." Eli grabbed her wrist. "You walk out there, they'll take you and still kill us." Lysera's eyes glowed faintly blue. "Then what do I do?" Eli smirked. "You stand with us." At that moment, the first explosive hit the house. The shockwave threw them all to the ground. Dust filled the air. Noah screamed as the roof cracked. Eli pulled him out just in time, coughing through the smoke. "Dad," Noah cried, "the generator's gone." "Good," Eli said grimly. "Means they can't track our signal anymore," but they were cornered. The royal guards were moving closer, step by step. Lysera clenched her fists, sparks flickering weakly between her fingers. "I can't summon much power," she said. "But maybe enough." Eli nodded. "Then we make it count." She closed her eyes. Breathing deeply, the faint hum of alien energy returned. Her skin shimmered faintly, and for a moment, the ground beneath them pulsed. When the soldiers entered the yard, a burst of blue light erupted from the sand, knocking several of them off their feet. Eli swung his plasma cutter, slicing through another's armor. The smell of molten metal filled the air. Noah shouted from behind the crate, "They're flanking us." Lysera turned, raising her hand. A beam of blue energy flashed out. Striking a drone midair, it exploded in a shower of sparks, but the effort drained her completely. She fell to her knees, gasping. Eli rushed to her side. "Lysera, stay with me." Her lips trembled. "They'll keep coming," she whispered. "They never stop." "Then neither do we," he said firmly. Lifting his plasma cutter again, Commander Serac advanced through the smoke, his armor gleaming with alien light. "You fight well, human," he said. "But this ends now." Eli stepped in front of Lysera. "You're right," he said. "It does." He pressed the ignition on the last power cell, the one connected to the buried generator. Serac's eyes widened. "What have you done?" The explosion tore through the ground, a wall of fire engulfing the attackers. Throwing them backward, the shockwave knocked Eli down, his world spinning. When the dust cleared, half the royal troops were gone, the rest retreating toward the ship. Noah crawled to his father, shaking him. "Dad, wake up!" Eli groaned, barely conscious, blood running down his forehead. Lysera crawled toward him, her hands trembling. "Eli," she whispered. You protected me." He smiled faintly through the pain. "That's what humans do." Above them, the sky roared again. The royal warship's engines thundered, and a new shadow descended, enormous, regal, and terrifying. Lysera's eyes widened in horror. "No," she breathed, "he's here." From the clouds, the warlord himself descended, tall, wrapped in black armor that glowed with the mark of the azure crown. Lord Xiren, the groom she had never met, her promised master, had come to claim his bride, and this time, no one was leaving without a fight. The air trembled as Lord Xiren descended from his ship. His armor shimmered like liquid darkness, and his eyes glowed with cold blue fire. Each step he took burned the sand beneath him. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. Lysera felt her chest tighten. She knew that power, that voice, that cruel calm that ruled 1,000 worlds. "Xiren," she whispered, her body shaking. "He came himself." Eli pulled himself to his feet. His arm bleeding, Noah clung to his sleeve, terrified but refusing to run. The human man faced the alien warlord, who stood twice his height and radiated enough energy to crush mountains. Xiren's voice rolled like thunder. "So, this is where my bride hides, among insects." His gaze swept over Eli, disgust plain on his face. "You protected her? A human dares to touch the royal bloodline?" Eli met his glowing stare, unflinching. "I don't care what color her blood is," he said calmly. "She needed help, so I gave it." The warlord tilted his head, amused. "Help? You mistake my generosity for weakness. She is property of the azure crown, not yours to keep." Lysera stepped forward, weak but standing. "Enough," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. "You call yourself my lord, but you treat me like an object." Xiren turned to her slowly, his tone mocking. "You are a jewel meant for display, not for dirt." Lysera's eyes glowed faint gold, her voice rising. "Then maybe it's time you saw what happens when jewels learn to cut." Xiren's smile vanished. "You would defy me, Lysera of the Azure Crown?" "I would choose," she said, "for the first time in my life." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low. "You don't have to do this alone." Lysera looked at him. The man who had no power, no soldiers, yet never once knelt to fear, and something within her heart shifted. It wasn't rebellion anymore. It was clarity. Xiren raised his gauntleted hand, gathering energy that crackled like lightning. "Then you and your human pet will die together." Before the blast struck, Eli pushed Lysera behind him. The explosion hit his chest like a hammer. Throwing him across the sand, Noah screamed. Running to his father, "Dad, no." Lysera fell beside Eli, her hands trembling. He was barely breathing, blood trickling from his mouth. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. He smiled weakly. "Because that's what humans do." His hand found hers, his grip faint but warm. Something inside her shattered. All the walls built by pride and fear collapsed in a single heartbeat. Her golden eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in her life she prayed. Not to her gods, but to whatever the humans prayed to when they refused to give up. Her hands began to glow brighter than before. "I won't lose him," she whispered. "Not like this." Energy flared around her. Wild and untamed, the sky turned blue-white. Lightning danced between her fingers. Her veins burned like molten silver. Noah backed away, eyes wide. "What's happening?" Lysera's voice echoed like a chorus of storms. Something that should have happened long ago. Xiren watched in disbelief as his former bride rose into the air, her skin glowing with blinding light. "Impossible," he snarled. "You cannot channel that power. It's forbidden." She looked down at him, her voice shaking with fury. "You taught me obedience, but he taught me courage." She thrust her hands forward, and a wave of light burst outward. The warlord raised his shield, but the energy pierced it, shattering his armor and throwing him backward. His ship trembled in orbit, alarm screaming, the ground split, energy surging through the sand like veins of fire. Eli blinked weakly from where he lay. "Lysera." She turned to him, smiling through tears. "Stay with me," Xiren roared, dragging himself up, his body scorched but alive. "You think you've won. You are nothing without me, Lysera." She looked at him one last time. "You're wrong," she said softly. "I was nothing with you." With a final surge, she called upon the full power of her bloodline. The air screamed as light engulfed everything, swallowing the ship, the soldiers, and the shadow of the warlord himself. Then silence. When the light faded, the ship was gone. Melted metal scattered across the desert. The sky was calm again. Lysera collapsed beside Eli, her power completely spent, her skin dimmed, her glow fading to a soft shimmer. Noah knelt beside them both, tears streaking his dusty face. "Dad, please wake up," Eli groaned weakly, his eyes fluttering open. "Still here, kid," he murmured. Lysera let out a shaky laugh, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You stubborn human," she whispered. "You really don't know how to die." Eli smiled faintly. Not when someone still needs fixing. Above them, the last of the alien ships broke formation and fled, carrying the rumor of the bride who turned against her crown. Lysira looked at the fading stars and whispered, "My people will never forgive me," Eli answered quietly. "Then stay with ours." And for the first time, the alien princess felt like she finally belonged, not to a throne, but to a home the warlord's empire had lost its jewel. But humanity had gained something far greater, a heart that had learned what it truly meant to choose. The first dawn after the war was unlike any other. The sky, once full of thunder and ships, now glowed in quiet shades of gold. The desert air was still heavy with the smell of burnt metal and alien smoke. But peace, fragile and trembling, Ajim had returned. Eli woke slowly, his body aching with every breath. He was lying in his bed, bandaged from chest to shoulder. His vision blurred for a moment before settling on a familiar shape beside him. Lysira, the alien princess who once called humans insects, sat at his bedside. Her silver blue skin dimmed but soft under the sunlight. Her eyes were tired but peaceful. When she saw him stir, she whispered, "Don't move too fast, human." Eli smiled faintly. "You say that like I ever listen." On the table nearby, Noah slept with his head resting on his folded arms. One of his metal braces still half-clipped. He hadn't left his father's side since the battle ended. Eli glanced at him and then at Lysira. "He looks like he hasn't slept in days," Lysira smiled faintly. "He refused to," he said. "Humans don't rest when family is hurt." The word family sounded strange from her lips, almost sacred. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind outside, carrying the echoes of a war that almost destroyed them. Finally, Eli broke the silence. "What happened to Zyron?" Lysira's golden eyes darkened. "Gone," she said. "The power I released scattered his fleet across the void. His reign is over." Eli nodded slowly. "And yours?" She looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "I have no throne now. I have no people who will welcome me back." Eli grinned faintly. "Then you're one of us." She blinked, confused. "One of you?" "Yeah," he said, tired, broke, and still trying to make tomorrow work. For the first time, Lysira laughed, really laughed, the sound soft and warm like music. Noah stirred at the sound, lifting his head. "You're awake, Dad." Eli reached out weakly and ruffled his son's hair. "Still here, kiddo?" Noah turned to Lysira, eyes bright. "You saved us, didn't you?" Lysira hesitated. "We saved each other." Later that day, they stepped outside together. The colony was silent, half destroyed yet standing. Smoke rose in thin lines across the horizon. Eli looked at the wreckage of his house. "Well," he said dryly. "Guess I always needed an excuse to rebuild," Noah grinned. "We can make it better this time." Lysira tilted her head. "Better?" Eli chuckled. "Yeah, fewer leaks, stronger walls, maybe even a real roof." She smiled faintly. "I can help with that." Eli raised an eyebrow. Royal hands doing manual labor. Her eyes softened. "For this house, yes." They spent the next days rebuilding what was left. Eli guided her through human tools. Noah handed bolts and wire, and Lysira, using her weakened energy, fused the metal sheets together. Her once perfect, untouchable hands now bore scratches and dirt, yet she didn't care. Every evening they sat outside watching the twin suns set, and for the first time in her life, Lysira felt something her palace never gave her: peace. One night as the stars blinked above, Lysira spoke softly. "On my world, we are taught that humans are weak, greedy, and foolish." Eli leaned back in his chair. "And now?" She looked at him and smiled. "Now I think we were blind." He chuckled. "We're definitely greedy and foolish, I'll give you that." Noah laughed. "But not weak." Lysira looked at the boy's crutches gleaming under starlight and nodded. "No, not weak." A few days later, a small human shuttle from the central colony arrived. Soldiers stepped out, scanning the wreckage. One of them approached Eli, saluting. "We picked up a massive energy surge, thought the whole planet exploded." Eli smirked. "Almost did." When they saw Lysira, the soldiers stiffened. Hands on their weapons, but Eli raised a hand. "She's with us," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The soldier hesitated, then nodded and said, "Then she's under human protection." That night, Lysira stood outside alone. looking at the stars that once led her people to conquest. Now they looked smaller, quieter. Eli joined her, his limp more pronounced. Thinking of going home? He asked. She shook her head slowly. No, I think I already am. He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, You know, when that pod landed, I thought it was just another mistake. She smiled gently. Maybe it was, he nodded. Yeah, but the best one I ever got. Behind them, Noah laughed from inside the house, calling, Dad, dinner's ready. Eli chuckled. That's my cue. He started walking back, then turned. Coming? Lizra hesitated, glancing once more at the night sky, at the stars that once ruled her, and the home she had lost, and whispered, I'm already here. She followed him inside. And for the first time since leaving her world, she didn't feel like a lost bride or a fallen princess. She felt like someone who had finally been delivered, not to a throne but to a family. The pod that had been meant for a royal palace had found the wrong address, but the universe, it seemed, had known exactly what it was doing all along.